My hero sword.
Curse Crusher. I
might,
choose you.
I might need a bigger sword.
You might.
Onward! Onward with the review! Hi and welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben.
And I'm Kay.
And today we are reviewing the new Pixar film, Onward.
Two teenage elf brothers, Ian and Barley Lightfoot, go on a journey to discover if there is still a little magic left out there, in order to spend one last day with their father, who died when they were too young to remember him.
So Dan Scanlon directed this film. He directed Monsters University. I thought that was okay. I thought Monsters, the original Monsters...
Inc.
Thanks. Was better than Monsters University. Not to say that I knew that it was him directing before going in to watch this film. All I knew about this film was that it was a fantastical fantasy Pixar film with Chris Pratt and Tom Holland.
And I didn't know any of that, just that it was Pixar. That's all.
We really enjoyed it. We took both our teenage sons, and I think at some point we all shed a tear.
Yep.
Or multiple. And also, I think I'm really happy to see that it was fairly full in the cinema, but I don't know how many people also shed tears. It seemed like there were quite a few people, young and old, from very young to very old, who were quite upset, and that is fair.
Yeah, I did enjoy this film. I thought that the story was new and fresh. It was something that, like you were saying on the way home, it's not part of an existing world. It's not part of an existing franchise. It's not going to have, hopefully not going to have sequels. It's not a sequel of something that already exists. It's just a standalone piece of loveliness all on its own. And please, Hollywood, don't ruin it.
There are a few things that really stood out to me in this film. One of them is the animation. So Pixar, it seems like as technology progresses, they just get better at what they do. And you would expect them to. But there are certain things that really shined. For me, the hair is one thing I don't normally talk about in reviews. But the hair looked like human hair if we were fantasy creatures, if that makes sense. So it looked like you could see the individual strands and they were believable as hair. And then you would look at their faces and you were like, wait a minute, you're an elf, or wait a minute, you are a centaur who's worth it. So I really liked the animation. I thought it was believable to what they were trying to create. This whole world, It's like a real world with fantasy creatures that have lost the idea that they used to use magic. And so you go on this journey, this adventure. It's a true quest adventure. Yeah. And a true quest adventure needs a story or a quest that is worth going on.
Yeah.
And I don't know of anyone better than to see an old family member again for 24 hours, and that's the quest. And so immediately you are behind the characters, which is a very clever way to do the story. But what else works in this film is that they set up individual plot point moments that catch up with the story in different segments of the film, which is very clever. So there are certain things that they do or certain things that they show you that you don't immediately know it's going to be used as a thing later on in the film. But when it does, you go, oh, I see what you did there. That's very clever. And I really like that it kept you really involved in the story, really involved with the characters, apart from this adventure and the fantastical creatures that you see. It was really entertaining to be along that adventure. But I have to say, when you get to the end, it does culminate to something really amazing, really big, as you expect. But there's no letdown. A lot of these films, and even in animation films, there is sometimes an anticlimax in film.
Yeah.
You just come away going, I enjoyed the film, but the ending didn't work for me. They did what they needed to do, and they kept to the story they were going to tell at the beginning, and they didn't shy away from pulling any punches. They hit you in the gut. They hit you with the feels. And if you were easily, that's not a word.
Easily.
If you're easily emotionally affected, you're probably going to need a few tissues for this.
Yeah.
It was, hard not to go and just to have the snot streams and the grossness of crying.
Well, I mean, for me, I was sitting there in the cinema, I had to work very hard to stop myself from going down the emotional track that I was headed on, because as whatever the story culminates, and I'm thinking, what if I could see my dad for one day? Like, yeah. I couldn't allow myself to think that in the moment because I was like, I'm just going to be sobbing for the rest of this film. So, it really, I think it's going to hit parents may be harder because we're of the age where we may have lost a parent, we may have lost a loved one. I think a lot of the kids who were there, well, hopefully haven't lost a parent. They all seem to be with their parents. So, it might not hit them quite as hard emotionally. But there were a couple of kids around us who were like, you could hear them asking questions.
Like,
and
why?
You just think, that's really good. It's really good to get people talking about that sort of thing and making you feel like you need to make your life worth it now. Like live life like you might not have that person in your life tomorrow. What would you do differently if
it's a good question to ask. So in amongst this fantasy story, they really go for that kind of life story, that theme, which I think is a really great theme to have. They don't pull away or shy away from the story, which is great, and it does seem to appeal to almost all the demographic. But if you've lost a loved one, you're really gonna feel that.
There might be lots of people coming out the cinema and, Dad, hey, just thought I'd give you a call and see how you are.
And that's good. I mean, if Pixar can claim to say that they've encouraged people to
connect
more,
to
love more, then that's a really good thing.
That is a good thing.
Yeah, it's one of the best. I asked my younger son, because he likes to rank Pixar films, or just films in general, and for him, this ranks up there with the original Cars, which he's seen so many times.
Oh, yeah, he loved that.
It ranks up there with The Incredibles, with the best. And I have to agree with him, especially because it's an original story. It's not something that's been done by book. It's not something that they've covered before. It's an original, interesting story, and they've taken us on an adventure. So if you were umming and ahhing and you're wondering, because it seems to have been put on the back burner a bit, not massive marketing, not in our area anyway.
No, we had none. No marketing.
Like, unless you're on the internet and you're searching for trailers, that's the only place you probably have seen it. Then, do make time to go and see this one. It's worth it at the cinema.
I also think that don't be put off because it's got big names doing the voice acting. Sorry. Yeah. Because actually, I didn't know who was voicing the characters and I didn't recognise them.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
I think it can make your enjoyment a little bit less if you go to the cinema and you're listening to, or you're watching an animation and you recognise the voice and you're like, oh, that's so-and-so. And then in your mind, you're kind of thinking, you're seeing them doing the acting. It just gets a bit confusing. But I think for this one, the voice acting was outstanding.
Yeah, I knew who the voices were and I still thought they were great because I didn't...
They didn't remind you of who they'd played in the past.
Was more Chris Pratt. But Tom Holland, I thought he did an excellent job. I really felt his emotion, his character. So I think you're going to enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching this review. Chat to us in the comments below. What is your favourite Pixar film? Are you excited to see this one? I believe it comes out on March the 6th officially worldwide. So chat to us. And if you've seen one of the early screenings, do chat to us there and let us know what is your favourite Pixar film. But most of all, until next time, remember... Live long and Tuesday.